You've heard of the Marines. You've heard of the Screaming Eagles. But you probably haven't heard of the 77th Infantry Division, a unit the Army once considered too old, too slow, and too late for combat. They were activated in 1942 with a mission that had nothing to do with glory. They were called the Guinea Pig Division, and they were built to answer a question no one really wanted to ask. What happens if the young guys don't make it? The Army took older draftees, men in their 30s and even 40s, and crammed them into one unit. It was supposed to be an experiment. It became one of the most lethal fighting forces in the Pacific Theater. The nickname came later, the Old Bastards. But before they were legends, they were just middle-aged factory workers and office clerks getting yelled at by drill sergeants half their age. And they weren't there to prove a point. They were there to do their job and not die doing it. The average age in the 77th was 33. To put that in perspective, you could retire from the military at that age if you joined young enough. Most guys start thinking about slowing down at 33. These dudes were just getting started. From the very beginning, the 77th broke every expectation. During basic training, they didn't just match younger divisions. They crushed them. Discipline, check. Marksmanship, elite, teamwork, built in. These guys had been through the ringer. Marriages, jobs, injuries, life. Compared to that, boot camp wasn't that intimidating. There's a reason soldiers say they'd rather go to war with a platoon of 30-year-olds than 18-year-olds. Because 30-year-olds don't panic. They've already survived a bad boss, a recession, and a child with a stomach bug on a road trip. What's a Japanese machine gun nest compared to that? At war games in Louisiana, the 77th went up against a younger division in a mock battle. The old guys didn't just beat the kids, they humiliated them. They faked identities, stole equipment, tapped into their comms, and even fed them bad intel, just to mess with them. They turned a military exercise into a playground prank war and still won decisively, and the brass started paying attention. Then came the real test: desert marches with no water. Cold weather survival with nothing but a sleeping bag, 6-day navigation exercises with barely any food. They weren't just training, they were being tested like lab rats. They even made their own unofficial medal to commemorate the worst parts, a chunk of sandpaper and a broken thermometer. They called it the Hyder Campaign Medal, and they earned it. Finally, after 2 brutal years of training in every climate imaginable, desert, mountains, jungle, the 77th got the call. They were heading to the Pacific. Their first assignment? Assist the Marine Corps in the Marianas. The Marines weren't thrilled. General Holland howlin' mad. Smith wasn't impressed with Army units so far, and when he found out he was getting a bunch of middle-aged draftees as reinforcements, he wasn't shy about his opinion. So instead of sending the 77th in as one unit, he chopped them up, platoon by platoon, and scattered them across his lines. But something happened. The reports started coming in. Who are these guys? They don't break. They hold the line. They advance when no one else will. One Marine battalion commander even said, "We started calling them the 77th Marine Division." And that was it. The Marines, who famously don't compliment anyone, gave them the highest praise possible. They called them their own. From that point forward, the 77th wasn't treated like an experiment. They were treated like a scalpel. At Leyte, they made an amphibious landing behind enemy lines, cut off Japanese supply routes, and unleashed a 2-month rampage that killed over 19,000 enemy troops. Their own losses, just over 500. At Okinawa, they weren't sent in with the first wave. They were held in reserve, not because they were backups, but because they were problem solvers. And when the problem became Hacksaw Ridge, they were the ones sent in to fix it. While 2 battalions were forced to retreat, 1 man stayed behind. A 26-year-old medic named Desmond, a conscientious objector who refused to carry a weapon. While under enemy fire, alone, he rescued and lowered 75 wounded men down a 100-foot cliff. By hand, at night, without firing a single shot. He'd survive, and he'd earn the Medal of Honor, but the ridge still had to be taken. The next day, the 77th returned. They killed over 3,500 Japanese soldiers in the days that followed, but they lost over 600 of their own. The old bastards paid the price, but they got the job done, and it didn't stop there. At one point, they even sank a Japanese naval vessel with nothing but infantry weapons and tank destroyers, a feat almost unheard of in modern warfare. By the time the war ended, the 77th had racked up over 43,000 confirmed kills, more than any other Army division in the Pacific. They were the only Army unit ever officially referred to as Marines by the Marine Corps itself. Even after Japan surrendered, thousands of enemy troops hiding in the mountains of the Philippines refused to lay down their weapons because they thought the 77th would kill them anyway. Their reputation had become that brutal. The 77th actually had to send in teenage replacements with the patches removed just to trick the Japanese into surrendering. They started as an experiment. They ended as a legend. Comment below. Was the 77th the most underestimated and most lethal unit in U.S. military history?